An intimate knowledge of the land and its resources, as well as the ability to utilize them, provided Indigenous Australians with material and spiritual sustenance. Their ability to survive in Australia's environment of extremes is a testament to their inventiveness and adaptability, and it follows that a deep understanding of the flora and their potential uses in the regions the Aborigines inhabited was necessary. Early accounts of the first explorers and settlers offer a compilation of accounts on Indigenous use of a range of biota. However, much of the original detail and knowledge has been omitted or forgotten. For instance, little detailed information has been compiled on the desert shrub and small tree Eremophila, even though it is one of the most widely distributed and diverse genera within Australia. Eremophila species are locally dominant in the semi-arid and arid zones of Australia, and are characterized by their drought, fire, frost and grazing tolerances. Many occur on impoverished soils or are indicative of degraded rangelands. As a consequence, they are often collectively termed poverty bush in Western Australia, though emu bush is a common name used in the other states and territories. This aforementioned name is due to emus favouring the fruit as a food source. Because they are widespread, many Aboriginal tribes utilize them primarily for their medicinal properties, but also for cultural rites and as a minor food source. This presentation will briefly discuss the curative, traditional, cultural and food uses of the Eremophila plant species. Of the 70 plant species known to have been used for therapeutic purposes, approximately a third were Eremophilas. The plant-based medicines required by Indigenous Australians would have been basic, as life-threatening diseases were not common, and contagious and infectious diseases such as cholera and tuberculosis were unknown until the invasion of European settlers. Majority of problems related to skin disorders, antiseptic needs, sprains, wounds and burns. The leaves and the bark were the plant parts most commonly used in the preparation of bush medicines, and new plants would have been tested for their effect in treating illnesses by a process of trial and error. The sick, frail and elderly likely served as test subjects, and once established as a useful species, information about the plant would have been passed on by word of mouth to the next generation of medicine men. To make these medicines, the plant material was treated by grinding, bruising or maceration processes, followed by extraction for plant preparations, infusions and decoctions. Inland Aborigines, who did not have access to boiling implements, carried out their extractions by soaking the plant material overnight in water or by pounding to make a paste which was mixed with fat to prepare the ointment, whilst those living in coastal regions used old baler shells to boil plant material. These medicines were purportedly used as analgesics, expectorants, and abortifacients, as well as for treating colds, influenza, and headaches. E. alternifolia was considered the number one medicine by some tribes, and it was one of the few species in which the leaves were harvested, dried, and carried around in case of need. Infusions of E. alternifolia leaves were used to treat colds, influenza, and headaches, and to induce sleep and pleasant dreams. It apparently showed analgesic and decongestant properties, and was reported to promote general well-being. The Aliawarra people of Central Australia considered E. longifolia to be of sacred and mystical significance. It is a tall and erect shrub or small tree typically provided by drooping branches and globular dark-coloured fruits, and informally known as native plum or weeping emu bush. Its medicinal uses include the burning of twigs for smoke treatment near trenches, in which newly born babies and their mothers were laid. Reportedly, this induced lactation in the mother and strengthened the babies. In addition, decoctions of the leaves were used as eye washes, as counter-irritants, and for skin and body washes. An infusion of the leaves was prepared for colds and headaches, and this treatment was reported to induce restful and restorative sleep. Similar uses have also been recorded for E. latrobi. The grandmother of the infant would take a burning twig in her hand and pass it over the face and upper part of her daughter-in-law's body to increase lactation. The leaves, twigs, and bark were also used as a decoction to cure headaches, and an infusion of leaves was applied to sore eyes, boils, and for insomnia. The decoction was applied to sores and also drunk for colds and used by the Walbiri tribe as a counter-irritant. The leaves and bark contain tannins, whilst the leaves contain an essential oil rich in saffron and methyleugonol. The leaves of E. frolingi were utilized primarily as an antiseptic wash, though aches and pains, headaches, diarrhea, sores, and chest pains were also treated. The leaves were used as a pillow, whilst an infusion of leaves was taken for general well-being. It is also one of the few Indigenous remedies adopted by Europeans who brewed medicinal tea from fragrant leaves which contain mostly alpha-pinene. Eremophila species also played a role in the ceremonial life of Indigenous Australians. Of all the species utilised, E. longifolia appears to be of special significance and is considered to be one of the most sacred and mystical of all Central Australian plants. The leaves and branches were used in elaborate circumcision rites where small sprigs were placed in headbands and armbands of the novices. In other ceremonies, the foliage was heated to produce an acrid smoke. Leaves were also used to brush sacred objects and bodies of men during rituals, whilst the branches were used to line graves and shroud bodies. Other uses of E. longifolia include tanning water-bag skins with extracts from the bark. Species such as E. fraseri or turpentine bush produce copious quantities of a resinous exudate which accumulates on the leaves and branchlets. These resins were collected by the Aboriginal people and used as sealants and adhesive materials. Few Eremophila species were considered important as food. The flowers and leaves of E. virilingi and E. latrobi were utilized by the Walbiri tribe of the Northern Territory, and it is known that the nectar of the flowers was drunk and regarded as a delicacy. The leaves of E. longifolia were used in the cooking process by surrounding emu flesh and thus giving it an aromatic flavor, presumably produced by the Frenchone, which is abundant in the essential oil. Eremophila is an important desert genus which was widely utilized by the Indigenous Australians. Early into life, Eremophila plants were used, as illustrated by the use of E. longifolia for cleansing a newborn child with an infusion of its leaves to strengthen the baby for life struggles. Throughout an Aborigines' life, Eremophila shrubs were sought for their curative qualities. During tribal movements, dried foliage of E. alternifolia may be found amongst the few possessions carried in case of emergencies. Eremophila plants were also incorporated in cultural rites, as well as for the worship of their feared and loved totemic ancestors, whose goodwill they were drawing upon themselves by carrying out the traditional rites. For the young Aboriginal male, Eremophila species were used in elaborate and complex ceremonies which took him from boyhood to manhood. Finally, in death, Eremophila species were involved in ceremonial rites, with branches lining the graves and shrouding the bodies during the burial ceremony.